Welcome back to Firewatch Business. It is my honor to have Dr. Abbie Parrish on the show. Thank you so much for coming on. Not only are you a business owner, but you're the chiropractor in the business, and you
Yes,
bought this business. You bought an existing business.
I did. Yes, I bought out the existing business in March of 2023. So I'm about 2.5 years in, which is crazy to say.
How was that experience in buying somebody else's business?
I think it was an immediate learning curve. And I learned it and I think there were a lot of life lessons that I continue to carry today. So it ultimately was worth it because we closed on the business. But I think, and I knew this immediately when I went and started contract negotiation. You're ultimately dealing with people, and you're dealing with the owners who also were very true mom and pop, low to no staff. And I don't think there was staff there when I bought it out. And then you're also existing with the current customer base or the patients. And so in that process, I learned a lot about priorities, temperament to change. I learned a lot about the law and how attorneys function. So it was great, and it was really awful all at the same time, just by way of because it also closed really quickly. I was introduced to the prior practice owners, and kind of happened to find them by serendipity in early January, and we closed on March 21st. So it was less than a 90-day turnaround, and the operation didn't stop ever. So they were still practicing. I was brushing shoulders with their patients. And then we closed on the 21st, and I was rolling into business on the 22nd. And their systems were paper-based. They didn't communicate amongst each other. And I was in the process of really bringing the practice up to speed, in my opinion, as far as something I wanted to carry on by moving things into much more electronic and streamlined processes. So there were a lot of hours. Those first 6 months were a blur. But I would do it again in a heartbeat, knowing that this would be my reality today.
So, do you think, knowing what you're doing today, you would not start your own, come and find a place and start your own? You would rather do it the way you did it?
The circumstances of the agreement, made it worth it to me. I think that it would depend on how quickly I wanted to grow a business. I pretty much was betting on the location, which was part of the deal. I was betting on the name. They asked me to keep the name, and to me that was great because that's what carries the legacy of the practice. There's brand familiarity there. And then I also got to keep the phone number, and that in and of itself has kept and with that phone number, you then have the Google profile, and SEO is a big deal, and history online is a big deal. And so there were things about the agreement in which we came to that made it worth it to me. I think, and I'm also saying this now, having put in reps for the past 2.5 years. I think there's also a world in which I could have started in one room, started really small, and gotten myself to this place. I don't know if it would have taken 2 years, 3 years, 5, but I do believe there's a world in which I could have chosen to have started from scratch and also been fine.
And when you got there, you started updating and starting automating some things. And that's something that you really wanted to do because in your practice, not only are you a chiropractor, but you also do acupuncture.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
I got to bring this up because it's one of the
Yeah.
coolest things that you have is the 3 tenets that you make every decision from. It's like your
Thank you.
principles. We talk about that on this channel a good bit about your core, your why you're doing it,
Yes.
and how
Yes.
you're going to make your decisions. And your 3 tenets are kindness, community, and connection.
Mhm.
Where did that come from?
So it came from a client-based survey, an onboarding survey that I had via a coach that I was working with at the time. Her name is Dr. Nikki Cottis. She's incredible. I've worked with a handful of coaches now, and she so far I think has been my favorite just by way of how direct she was with me. Um, it and in her client survey, there was a lot of like basically what we're doing live, really with the purpose of like what can we then do to elevate the practice based on like what we're seeing or where you are. And she said the words that came up the most were kindness, community, and connection. She just seems to be, that's just what I saw in the word search on this document, and that seems to be what you're drawn to, and I think that's what you need to base your practice off, at least initially. So those three words have just been with me. They mattered to me most in the sort of preliminary evolution of the practice, and they've not changed. You know, because things change as you put more time in and on the business. And so I was very open to those words changing, those concepts changing, and so far they haven't, and they can continue to serve me well, and hopefully continue to serve the community and the patient base well too.
And you've lived it. I mean,
Mhm.
and we know each other. We've known each other
Mhm.
for a little while now, and I've seen it in your practice, right? When we talk
Thank you.
about connection and community, you're really involved in the Eastern Shore Chamber, obviously,
Mhm.
like I am, but
Mhm.
also you're connecting because your pop up, your headshot pop up with the local photographer here, Blue Room
Mhm. Mhm.
Photography, and then you do have a B12 pop up, and I
Mhm.
cannot remember who that's with. Who is that with?
That's hosted by Coastal Health Connect.
And people come to your office to get a B12 shot.
Yeah, yeah, it's great, and it's just a wonderful service I think to offer because it's something that I can't do. Like I can't do injections. I also don't want to do injections, and so to have the opportunity to serve people, and that you don't have to be a patient to that's available to the general public, and that's also a really cool thing too. It's just to be able to utilize the office space and the clinic for things that aren't necessarily affiliated with me. That's been a really cool thing to do.
And it goes back to how you make your decisions on connections and community. Here you
Mhm.
are opening yourself up to the community with the connection to have professional headshots for business people
Mhm.
at a chiropractic office. And your chiropractic office is beautiful. So you have a beautiful background. And I
Thanks.
think, so uh very, very nice. And it just shows how much you believe in those tenets.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think they help me stay grounded because I mean, I'm in the weeds all the time. I mean, when I think I'm doing great, I'm probably still like 6 feet in them, you know? So just to go back to the simplicity of those three words, as somebody who has so many words to say and think, just think through those three things, through those three lenses. And if they match, you're okay. Move on.
We talked about the automation, and that's one of the
Mhm.
things that we wanted to get into tonight because it's just automation is just key. It's key for small entrepreneurs that have a
Yes.
small business. And how much staff do you have? I mean, and how many people are you working through that you got to have automation to make it work?
Yes, absolutely. So I have learned that automation can be done through both a human hand that is not a W-2 in your payroll, and automation can be done through like electronic means, either by like an actual automated something or another, or AI, which is an AI. A key difference between at least right now in like automation and AI is like artificial intelligence is supposed to learn with you. And automation just kind of is. You know, you set up a system, and every time you hit a button or something happens, it does the same thing. But the vast majority of the back end of my office is managed and automated by people who specialize in a particular subsect of my business. So claims and billing specialist, CPA and payroll, you like attorney, compliance officer, as opposed to having a single office manager wear all those hats, which also, in my opinion, also fairly, at least in my industry, it really raises key person liability. Meaning, if they leave, you've got like a huge hole in your business. Um, I have figured out that it has allowed me to run basically a staffless practice. It's not just me out here running this practice in the wild, wild west, but I don't have to manage people on a daily basis because I've contracted that specialty within the office. And then there's Haley Kern, and we say I'm involved in the chamber, but like it's Haley.
Yeah.
like so that's what I hired her to do. Haley has really allowed me and the office, and I'm so fortunate to have her, she has really allowed me and allowed the office to embody the community and connection aspect of the practice. It's my job as the practitioner to give that first and foremost to my patients. Um, and I want to give that to community. Sometimes that's really hard to do after hours. And Haley is routinely there, and she is like 12 out of 10 every time, all the time.
Yeah, she's so high energy.
Yes, yes. And I'm pretty like chill, quiet.
Yeah, yeah. Haley is definitely 100% all the time.
Yes, yes.
Then she's done she gets your name out there. She's done a real good job at that, don't you feel?
Absolutely. And I feel so fortunate to have practiced and continue to practice so many things that are important to me and that I want to embody within the realm of leadership and what it means to run a ship. And she has been so gracious with me to allow me to really do that, pour into her, and like invest my time in her, make mistakes with her, like do things with no structure and build it as we go. And I feel very grateful. And I feel like the impact she has had on my practice, like I just don't ever see that going away. I'll keep her for as long as I can. She does work part-time for me. She also is like getting her MBA now. And so like, homegirl is spreading her wings and like she better fly high.
Right, no doubt,
Yes.
and she will.
Yes.
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that
Yes.
she's going to do incredible things. There's just no
Yes.
doubt. So
Hmm.
let's get back to the automation a little bit.
Yeah.
And you went and how did you research and find the not the W-2 staff, but the staff that you have that is out there that is doing the work for you currently? How did you go about
Uh,
that? And what was kind of like the vetting process?
Yes. So Haley and Asia are the only two local people that I have. Haley is the only person who's on my payroll. Asia is my social media manager. But I work very closely with her. And the main thing that I found with Haley, I'd hired two other people to hold Haley's position prior. And as far as my ability to look for staff, what I've learned, and I didn't have words for it at this time, but I do now, is Haley's orientation to the clock is very similar to mine. We both live for tomorrow. Like we are not in the present day and we're not thinking about yesterday. We are doing the work now so that tomorrow may be better. And that also is a key factor in like in any kind of automation I do. If it's not helping me save time or basically keep me on the clock so that tomorrow may continue to be at least what it is today, I don't want it. And so that's now a huge part moving forward in any kind, like the language that I ask Haley to use in emails, how I train Haley, how I ask Haley to use her, like when she's talking with people, is very much like we're either in today or we're talking about tomorrow.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and as a and this channel is all about leaving your 9 to 5 and trying to get
Mm-hmm.
into owning your own business. And key aspect of that is time management. And
Mm-hmm.
what a great way to put it is if it's not helping you save time today or in the future, then this is something you don't even need to invest in.
For me, yes, yes. I am sure there are businesses out there whose leaders have more of an orientation to the past or to the present time, and they're able to get things done and have very successful businesses. I just like I am not that way. I'm very much like if we're feeling regulated, we're staying present, and if we're just kind of like Abbie on like a random Saturday, we're thinking about tomorrow. And so I've had to just lean into that too. I've really had to own that and allow that skill set to be what it is, and then find ways to kind of craft and like rub off the edges, if you will, or find more effective ways to utilize that in the business because that is a key part of who I am. And that's half of business ownership and small business, as I'm sure you can relate. You've just got to own what you've got, work on the weak spots and foster the strengths and call it a day.
Absolutely. You're hitting all the things that we talk about on this channel so much
Mhm.
is that a lot of people know where their weak spots are and just refuse to work on them or they
Sure.
don't want to look at them. And you got to be that salt in the wound kind of guy where you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, yes, I got to improve on this. I got to do a better job at that. And in small business, it's just so important. And you got to be fast in small business. I
Yes.
think speed is big deal.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So how did you vet like the people that are behind the scenes that are not your W-2 employees that are like, like the insurance and those kind of things? How did
Yes,
you
yep.
vet those companies? Is it through an association or how does that happen?
It so I was very fortunate in that the operations or the way I was able to craft my operation was really through connections that I had. Some again were very serendipitous. I think I had good fortune in that. But when I was vetting them and how I ultimately decided to contract them, the first question that I asked with every single person was, do you have at least 15 years of experience? I wanted them to have put in the time because to me that means that they until they decide to retire or until I decide that there's a better fit or a different fit based on how the company is growing or what I want slash need, I will have them forever. So that was the first question that I asked, and I was able to do that with everyone I think, but the exception of my attorney, because that would have cost me probably both my kidneys and probably like my first child. To have worked with, because my office is small, so to have worked with an attorney right off the bat with that much seniority, like that just would have been disproportionate, like a disproportionate amount of experience. But everybody else has, I mean, anywhere from 15 to 25 years in their industry.
And do you feel like these people are looking out for your best interest, A,
Mhm.
and do you think like these people are there, are not there for just to collect a retainer every month, but to actually give you solid advice and
Yes,
move you?
yes. And I was very hungry. I think if nothing else, I'm a pretty decent student. And so I want to understand what's happening, why it's happening, and then when things go wrong or if things go wrong, like how do you solve for that? And really, as an owner, like what is my liability? And so I was very relationally driven. Like those were a lot of my questions. I think were grounded in like what kind of relationship are we going to have? What kind of rapport are we going to have? And I've been able to find that with everyone. So for example, Patty, my biller, had never used my EHR. I also had never used my EHR, and we learned the billing side of it together. And again, she's very experienced. She didn't, and she's busy. She did not have to say yes to that, and she did. And she's kept my AR clean. She calls the insurance company when I have a question. Like she cares. I remember one time, this was probably I think for the first 6 months I worked with her, like anytime we had a phone call, she was like, I just want you to know, like I've thought about your business and I'm praying for you. Like you're doing great, you're doing awesome. So you like I was able to like that humanity keeps you in the game, because I think like business can otherwise be quite a bit of a grind, and it's moments like that of like I thought of you, like or I saw when this client came in, I knew that client was a difficult person for you to deal with, and I stopped and I thought about it before I processed this claim. Like that means a lot to me.
Getting back into, I mean, this is just so phenomenal to me because my dad was an acupuncturist,
Yeah.
so I really believe in acupuncture. So I wanted to get into that a little bit too because
Okay.
it is amazing. The acupuncture can help in so many different areas. One that my dad was really focused on was is sinuses.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and he had people come in all the time to help them keep the sinuses clear and everything through allergy season and those kind of things. And these people swore by it.
Cool. Now, did he needle like on their faces at all? Okay. Like
Yes.
he would. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, he sure would.
Yeah.
And
That's fascinating.
so a lot of the stuff that acupuncture does, it's not just give us a little brief about what all the acupuncture items that you're working with clients on.
Okay. So acupuncture, as you said, can be done for, I mean, a myriad of things. And that scope, I think, really depends on like your training. So for example, my doctorate is in chiropractic care, so that's where my highest level of education lies. And then I have an auxiliary certification, of which I chose to pursue through the same board that issued me my national license for chiropractic work. And in my opinion, within that scope, because I, don't have a master's degree in acupuncture, I don't have a master's degree in herbalism, I stay really within the niche of musculoskeletal pain. So like neck, middle back, low back. So like your just typical kind of bread and butter cases, like chiro cases. And then I also really enjoy grounding work, which is balancing that sympathetic, which is your fight and flight, and then your parasympathetic, which is that rest and digest, kind of doing what I can to stimulate a more restful sense of like bodily temperament there. And then headache and migraine. Those are the things that I really focus on. Yeah. And then I do TMJ work as well. Typically, if I'm doing TMJ work, I really want to be doing cranial, soft tissue, and chiro care in conjunction with that. But acupuncture care can be a great adjunct as well.
So let's go back to the fight and flight.
Mhm.
How does that work? You're doing acupuncture on them. How does that work?
Yeah. So there are points in your ear specifically that can help, or that research shows can stimulate your vagal tone. Your vagus nerve is a cranial nerve, and it's the only one that slips behind your diaphragm, and it holds a lot of innervation or influences a lot of like GI and respiratory work. And when you needle those points, you can bring a sense of, because it stimulates that nerve, you can bring a sense of like calmness or ease to the body. Now, it is not chemical by any means, so it's not a pharmaceutical influence. I have some patients who are like the sensation, because it brings them into that state. They themselves, because they're more regulated, there are tools that they have acquired through therapists. There are tools that they have because they're on medication. It keeps them in that state, in more of a deeper state of that longer, or a state that they find meaningful. I have some patients who are like, I work a really intense job, I just want the next like hour just to be like chill, and that's meaningful enough to them. And that is something too that I really check in with the patient, just by way of like, what is your expectation? Are we meeting it? What are factors that are either supporting it or need to be modified to bring you to like what you want out of this appointment?
That is amazing, because I love the whole, and I'm writing it down, is that I love the whole expectations and are we meeting them?
Mhm.
Because that is so important for any business.
Mhm.
Uh, and especially when in your whole onboarding process, you're managing those expectations. And then as you're going through the treatment, you're managing those expectations, telling them where they are and where you think you can get them to be. And then here we
Yes.
are again, are we living up to what we promised to? Are we delivering what we said we would?
Yes. Yes. And I think too, there's a very big conversation in the office, or a very routine conversation in the office, about functional result versus pain management. So I have some patients who are like, they're like, look, like I've hurt my back or I hurt my neck and I really just want to get out of pain. Okay, great. I have some patients who are like, I hurt my neck. And I do have questions by way of like, it really depends on the patient history. But if I think there's reason that I can I can resolve pain, or at least greatly depreciate it, and there's opportunity to restore the functional aspect in which the patient finds their complaint is negatively impacting them, like we then have a conversation about that. Because there's a difference between like get you out of pain versus, sometimes there's a difference between getting you out of pain and like resolving the issue to the point of it creating a stable functional result.
Yeah, because sometimes the pain can be crippling.
Mhm, mhm.
Right, so there is a continued thing, and then sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes it is an injury that has to be healed.
Yes, yes. Or sometimes I have patients, like for example, I have a vertigo case right now, and I feel very fortunate. This does not happen very often. Like occasionally I have a patient that makes me look like really good. You know what I mean? And their vertigo went from being like super annoying and like a major impedance to like activities of daily living to like basically being gone. And I think I've worked with them like 3 times. The complaint is resolved by way of the symptom. is it functionally stable enough? I think like we still are in a process of discovering that by way of like, because they've had to modify their lifestyle a fair bit. And so as they're increasing and coming back to their ideal baseline, their normal baseline, like I will continue to trot along with them to make sure that result stays functionally at ease. Right. So there's a difference. Like the vertigo is not there anymore. Has it actually been resolved to the point of it not coming back when the patient starts to live their normal life?
Yeah, absolutely. And that
Mhm.
makes perfect sense
Mhm.
because you're more than just helping them get rid of one symptom. I
Right.
think, and I'm going to say this, you didn't say this, I
Sure.
said this. I think a lot of times we treat the symptoms, we treat the symptoms and not the cause of what's bringing on the problem.
Yes, yes. And there is client management in that. And I mean, client patient management in that. And I wonder if there's a similarity between like CPA clientele and like, I mean, really any business that chooses to utilize, to be hospitable, to really think about their clients. Like, you know, I can imagine a world in which you worked with clients whose like operations were a mess every single year, but you got it done, you know? And then you had clients who were like, look, this is a mess, but here are the things you can do to resolve these problems. So that way next year, when this season rolls around, you don't have these issues anymore. Right. And I do think that is like, that's a part of really any business. I think when you're working in service of like helping others.
To educate them and to
Mm-hmm.
bring them to a better place than when they got there. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, in the CPA business, it was more money wise,
Sure.
look at my financials. I'm not tracking the things I need to track to make more money. What are those ideas that need to be done? And that's,
Right.
again, you're talking about a self assessment basically of where
Mm-hmm.
you're at and what you're doing. All right, so we're going to go back to the automation because that's really
Yeah.
what we really wanted to focus on tonight. We've been all
Sure.
over the place.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. I think it's my fault as host. I should keep us back on track. But just talking to you, and you got so much knowledge. It's amazing, and the amount that you're helping people is amazing. But let's go back to the automations. You have some thoughts on that we wanted to get into. I'm just going to let you go because I'm very interested in in this.
Yeah. So I am in a place where I'm really contemplating like how much or how little AI you should use and where and when and for how long it should be used. Like, because I mean, there are all these thoughts I have around it, just in relation to do you use it more for your customers and then it stops when they become consumers? Do you use it for, because that helps you with like the inquiry stage of things. Like, so, it helps, like there's automation there and and by doing that, there's efficiency just by way of like when and how you're spending your time on the front end of like introducing yourself in the clinic to someone. But then like once they become a patient, like, how hands-on do I want that communication to be moving forward? Um, and I think like another thing I think about too is just the use of artificial intelligence in fashions that are HIPAA compliant. I think it's very quickly becoming, I think, something that is not gray. Like it's moving into more black and white things, and people companies are creating softwares or integrations that are HIPAA compliant. But like that's a big deal, and I'm like ever skeptic of like until somebody else has done it, like, and something has gone wrong. Like I don't want to use it, because I want to know like what's happened and how they evolve from that. Uh, but the idea of like using AI to listen to patient communication between the patient and I, and then create a summary. Like, is that worth it? And my current software does allow for that. It's in its beta testing, I think, phase. So like, I'm not on it. Because I'm
Right,
scared.
right.
Yeah, I mean,
You're
I
not
don't
the
have
early
anything to be
adopter.
afraid of, but it's just like, yeah, it is one of those things too, where like whenever you create automation, you are having to ask yourself, like, if that centers something else, like on the periphery, like what is it disrupting, and then like how far do you want to carry that ripple effect out? One thing too that I've considered just by way of like further automating the system is really utilizing like how our phone system works, and trying to decide like, do I create a world or a way in which the phone is set up to ring only for people who are interested in being new patients and everybody else has to leave a message because they can wait, or is that like, what is the public perception around that? What is the patient perception around that? And then how do you automate that system from there in a fashion that still carries kindness, community, and connection? Because you are at risk of losing that every single time you create something that is the same. And there is also kindness, community, and connection and predictability. So like that's kind of the line that I walk.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that I'll use AI every single
Mhm.
day. I
Yeah.
love it. I think it's amazing. It does a lot of stuff for me, and I appreciate that. But one of the things I think that AI is going to be crazy wicked good at will be moving doctors like yourself into um, a diagnosis kind of framework, right?
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Where you're going to start moving. There's going to be a question that's going to be asked of AI on your inboard on your intake
Mhm.
materials. You're going to answer that question, and then you're just going to go through some type of tree to try to figure out what kind of problems they're having and where in a systematic AI way, where it's learning this client and then given
Yes.
options after it goes and pinpoints what they say their problem is. Then it's going to give the doctor you options on treatment, and and you're going to be able to tell AI, I've had this situation before, and
Right.
this worked well. This is my first option, and then this has worked second. Well, you know what I mean? I think the diagnosis part of AI is going to be just wicked.
Yeah, I don't know if I've thought about it through that lens, and like even just listening to like the introduction of like a new idea to me. So my brain just starts like spinning. I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting concept. Like, and I don't see why that wouldn't happen. Like, is it just like I immediately like think about like, oh, is there a situation where I could be taking like doing an intake process and I'm watching the screen, formulate and summarize, and then it's catching blind spots in my diagnosis criteria or question asking based on what it's pulling from the patient. That would be a really cool thing to experience because like and that also I think brings me into conversation about like what does it mean to be a clinician if you aren't having to think about an accurate diagnosis and its presentations and the education around that, the resolve around that, like that would be a really interesting thing to do because I use a lot of brain power right now thinking about that.
Right, because you're racking your brain to make sure you're giving them the absolute best
Mhm.
service that you can possibly do for your patients, and
Mhm.
they're counting on you to do that. Uh,
Yes, yes.
and I think that's another thing that sets you apart from a lot of different chiropractors and even in healthcare all around, is that you are so in tune with helping people.
Thank you.
You are that kindness that you did, and you are focused on that, which I think is just, you are using so much brain power because you do want success for your patients.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's just that is amazing, and I just think AI has so many opportunities, and it's scary as hell.
Yes, yes. There was like I don't do you remember the movie um where like gosh, it's been a really long time since I've seen it. But I think there was like a computer system and I thought the world was going to end and then at the very end it was just like a game and like it didn't nothing happened. Do you like that's what I
Like war
remember
games,
that made
like that old '80s movie War Games.
Yes, yes. Is it like at the end, like there you have all these people looking at like the big screen, it's like NASA or something, and then it's just like, do you want to play again or like game over? And it
Right,
wasn't
right, right.
anything.
I
Yeah,
remember that. Yeah,
yeah.
he gave it like the unsolvable. Oh, he gave it tic tac toe. It made it play
Okay.
tic tac toe with itself. That's exactly right. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just, and the expansion of AI. I mean, look at all the things. I mean, Amazon and what's the other, Apple doing
Mhm.
billions of dollars to build these AI farms.
Yeah, yeah. I think Google's stock, something happened to Google that hasn't happened in a long time. I don't remember if it was like stock and or like consumer like usage. It was something like that that like caused a ruckus in like the in the news cycle for just a minute. And it had to do with AI. Like Google is like you said, like Google, Apple. I mean, they're spending a lot of money trying to keep up with the AI market. One thing or another thing as well, where I just wonder about like the human's ability to like think. It's
Oh no.
like AI repeats what other people have spent time proving or creating or disproving, and so like if you stop thinking, like what happens, like what happens to people, what happens to the world.
I'm telling you, I think the majority of high schoolers and college age kids today, and even in the past 10 or 15 years, maybe not that far back, but I think the
Mhm.
critical thinking level of people is in strict decline.
Right, right. Well, and I think just the ability, like language to me is very much a currency. Like it's there's give and take there. I mean, people have like started and stopped wars with words. Okay,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
that's it. And when AI has the ability to create so and produce so much information, like what does language mean? Like what is the exchange of like conversation and like digital interface versus like this, like person to person? Like what happens when you're not thinking about what you're saying? Because, is it conversation? Is it information? How much did you vet it? Like where's your conviction in that? I also think there are really good things too, just by way of like access to knowledge and the ability for lots of people to now have the opportunity to learn. And because this database is so expansive, and maybe you can't do that because you live far away from a library, but you have a cell phone, or you can't read. But I mean, there's probably, I would bet there's an AI out there like that can read to you, that's free.
Oh,
Like there's just,
absolutely.
I think there's a lot of potential. And as you said, like also just there's a lot of like, I mean, it's kind of scary. It's disrupting, it's disruptive, and which is I think is okay until it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I use AI all the time.
Mhm.
Not only do I use Chat GPT, but I'm also in Gemini and I'm also in
Okay.
Copilot because I'm
Nice.
asking the same question in all three just to see what all kind of information I can get
Mhm.
to see how much more I can. Like you said, if you're taking it to learn, that's one thing. If you're taking it to plagiarize it, that's a completely different. And
Yes.
maybe it's not plagiarizing, maybe it's just stealing their information. But
Right.
it's just amazing to me. Amazing.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Abbie Parrish, thank you so much for your time tonight. Is there anything else we needed to cover before we got off here? It was a quick conversation. It didn't
Yeah,
seem like we've
no.
been talking this, but I know your time's valuable and I don't want to spend all night doing it, bugging you, but I do appreciate you coming on so much.
Sure, I appreciate it. I think as far as just like general updates to the practice, like just kind of a quick update by way of if you have interest in chiropractic care, acupuncture care, you can call or text the office line at 251-621-2224. And then my office hours have also changed a little bit since I first opened. Yeah. So on Mondays and Wednesdays, we're open from 7:30 to 12, and then 1:30 to 5:30. On Tuesdays, I'm open from 12 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. So I work straight through lunch. And then on Thursdays, I work 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. straight through lunch. So I now have 4 days with afternoon appointments and two that hold lunch hours.
Well, at least now that the time has changed, you're getting out to see the pier and the sunsets.
Yes, yes, oh yes.
It's very therapeutic to go out there and see that.
It is. It is.
And where your office is, it's pretty close, so you can get down
Mhm,
there.
mhm,
That's
absolutely.
fantastic. Abbie, thank you so much. It's just a pleasure talking to you, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.